She said 2 out of 3.
You cheated.
You know what I'm saying?
So let's start over and go 1.
No, we don't cheat.
James won that one, so he got 1 out of 3.
Oh my God.
Go ahead.
I got 2 actually because she cheated twice. All right, come on. Rock, paper, scissors, shoot. I knew you were gonna do that. Rock, paper, scissors, shoot. I knew you were gonna do that too. Rock, paper, scissors, shoot. We done. I knew she was gonna do that. I knew.
Oh. Welcome back to Heart Matters with Jaden and Jessica Carter. We are so excited to welcome you all back into our conversation. So get on in here and join into the conversation.
All right.
Oh, you know what I said? I wanted to make sure I mentioned this to you all because this particular candle company, Afro-American Candle Company, one of my favorite candle companies. They are absolutely amazing. This particular one is called Girl Get Up, my favorite scent from them. The reason why I mention this candle company is not just because they are an amazing candle company, but they are also owned by a couple. And tonight we're going to discuss partners in love and in business.
Oh, yeah.
So as we're talking about partners in love and in business, I think I'm gonna have to ask you a question.
Go for it.
We have so many anecdotes and stories we can tell about our life together as partners in love and in business. We've been doing this for a while now, since I think our first business we started in 2012, which was a God-driven destiny, which became Launch Studios. Yeah. What is like one story that you can think of that you think would help to define the pathway to how we got to where we are now?
Okay. I believe that the story that I'm telling, I got so many that I have in my head, but at this moment, the one that I'm really pinpointing on right now is the time frame when I was about to get my building, because I was going around, I was asking all of my friends about, because I was thinking about doing a storefront, something like that, to get my studio going. And I was going around asking my friends about, if they have a studio, how much does it cost, the expenses, do you guys get people coming in? And they gave me all these different things. So I remember I was driving down the road, and God told me to stop by this place. He just out of the blue told me to stop by this place and talk to them about, their sheds. They had like these barn sheds. So I talked to them about it, got the cost, came back, and it really depressed me. Like I really felt bad. I was like, man, I felt horrible. Like I came back, and I remember I talked to you about it. And you weren't depressed at all. You just thought everything was okay, and I was just like,
I was walking around.
Yeah, exactly. But I was depressed because of how much it costs, and I'm thinking about all the bills that we have in the house and all that stuff. So at that time frame, I was thinking to myself, we can't do it. So I was just like, it doesn't matter. I can't do it. I can't get a storefront because that costs too much. My friends told me that costs too much. I can't do the building in my backyard. So I gave up, and I told you I was done with it. Now remember, you let me soak for about 5-10 minutes, and after that, because like you said, you didn't. I remember distinctly that you didn't feel it. You was just like, okay, well, what we got to do to get it? And immediately you told me, okay, we're gonna figure it out. You can stop all this soaking, stop saying that you're giving up on your dream, because you've been telling me this since we were in our teens, that this is what you wanted, and this was your vision. So you didn't allow me to give up on that. So I think that story is highly vital at this time frame for people to think that, because of where I am now, that I've always been here. No, there's times when I feared, I wanted to give up, I didn't want to be here, I didn't want to, it's not that I didn't want to be here, I wanted to be here, but at the time I was like, it's too hard. Yeah, it was scary, it was too hard, it was overwhelming, it was tough, it was rough, But I am now, thank God, that, I have a support system for my wife, and you gave me a whole lot of, push, a whole lot of, all right, we're going to do this, we're going to figure this out. She's a planner. My wife, you love to plan, and I love that about you, because we planned the thing out, and to this day now, like you said, we started in 2012. But
you're talking about, like, we planned this thing out because we got this building, you was depressed and all that stuff, but even before that building, we took stepping stones to get to that point.
We did.
I think a lot of times when it comes to being great partners in love and in marriage and in business, it starts with being a supporter of each other's dreams.
Yeah.
And for you, that was a major dream for you. I wasn't very thrilled about the whole music thing because it took so much time.
It did.
But in seeing how much time you spent with that music, and how happy it made you, and how you could go in there and just get lost in the music, and then seeing you teach other people how to do it, and just really seeing how much joy it brought you. It was like, wow, it would be really selfish of me not to support that, and seeing how much joy that brings to you, brought to you.
Well, I'm happy that you didn't allow me to give up on it, because I am where I am now because of that. I really. It was tough, like you just said. It was steps. It was a lot, and like you just said, there's stories for days. But there was one time, and I'll say this real quick, that you came up to my house, 45 minutes you drove, and you get there, and I go in. I say, well, hey, you sit here with my family.
This is before the marriage thing, though, so I should have known then.
I said,
that it was gonna be an issue later.
Yeah, I told you sit here with my family because we was watching a family movie. Yeah. I said, sit here for like 2 minutes. I'll be right back. I got this in my head. I got to go play it just so I can remember it for later. And I remember I went in, and then 2 hours later, you came knocking on the door. You pick your head in. I'm leaving. And I was like, no, wait, what?
Yeah.
I think at the time it was 2 hours, so I got to chase you down the road in the car to get you to come back, and not leave. But that was like you said, and that was a part of.
So I wasn't always supportive, is what we did.
I mean, it's not that you were supportive. I was unbalanced. You know what I mean? Like I was really lost in my passion, my vision.
Oh, that's good, because you just changed my whole thought process on where I was gonna go with this. But you mentioned the term that you were unbalanced, and I said, I was unsupported. Yeah. It can sometimes be difficult to support a vision that is unbalanced, and I think sometimes we don't realize that, one, I'm unbalanced, two, I'm not being supportive, and then in that there's a lot of headbutting and pushing and fighting and things like that.
And we definitely had that at the beginning.
We did literally. But what I'm saying though is that understanding that, getting all of that, I guess getting to that level of understanding, it took us a while to get there, number one. But two, I didn't even realize that we need to get there until this very moment. But somehow along the line, thanks Jesus that we were able to get there. Yeah. But in getting there and going through that process of supporting you in that vision and seeing how back from when you were a teenager, this was, important to you. Yeah. But once I decided that I was going to support you wholeheartedly in that, things got easier for you. They got to the point to where you were able to make decisions without having to question, is my wife going to agree with this? What is she going to think about that? You kind of already know that. It's one thing for me to say, hey, whatever decisions you make, I support you. It's something altogether different for me to literally show you that I support you, even in the moments where you're about to give up on your own dream, and for me to say, hey, listen, no, this is what you want. This is what we're going to do. Whatever it takes for us to do it, we're going to do it. And if that means that we have to set aside a little money here to invest into your business, that's what we have to do. Now, I want to add this too. When we first started out in business with the studio, we were definitely not entrepreneurs. We were definitely self-employed people. Yeah. And in being self-employed, we were literally counting on, we were literally counting on every client that walked through that door to book a session, to say, I want to record. And hey, let's lock it in. The issue with that for us at the time though was that we were so dependent on that that we took any client that came in because we needed the money. And when you're self-employed, you're reliant on just that. You don't think about the scalability of a business. You don't think about the fact that in order for me to make this business sustainable, I have to step outside of being an employee of the business and I have to become the CEO of the business. I have to think about this as not just something that's going to take care of my family, but something that's going to be able to take care of other families. And to do that, I can't just accept any client. We can't just go out and just put anything up. There has to be a brand associated with this business.
Well, based on what you just said now with that brings up a whole different dynamic, because there, like you said, there is a difference between entrepreneur and then, being self-employed. And once you begin to figure out those different dynamics, you start learning how to grow out of one thing into the next thing, you know, because we had to grow out of that. We had to learn how to grow out of that, because you got to think about credit. You know what I mean? You got to build business credit. So once you start building business credit, you start getting certain funds to where your capital.
We were so ignorant.
Yeah, we were. I mean,
we were so ignorant.
Yes, but once we start learning these things, we grew out of the self-employed nature over into entrepreneurship, to where we can now, like you said, hire people that could run the businesses. And now we could think on the CEO level and start thinking of particular ideas to do in order to gain capital, to gain money. To, like you said, we're not accepting any clientele. We're getting the right clientele for the right thing, but the business supports itself to where we're not having to be there all the time to run it all the time, but the business itself is its own entity with its own credit, with its own with its own community status. You know what I mean? Like that's a whole other thing to where, you know, your business, how do I say this? The business is
It should
brand.
become self-sufficient.
Yes,
That
yeah,
is,
exactly.
like you said, it's
Yep.
its own entity.
Exactly, and the business's brand has to be strong enough to where the reviews and the people that talk about it, that come, that they see it, they understand the value of it. And now the value outgrows even the person. You know what I mean? Because it's like if you say McDonald's or if you say any other place, you know what I mean? You think more of the history of it. So now we've grown the history. As we've grown the history, the credit and all this stuff, you kind of really go into a whole different dynamic. And it took us time to get to that point, like you said, to grow out of being self-employed to where we're doing everything and we're living check to check to where we get over to entrepreneurship.
No, we weren't living check to check. We were living client to client.
Well, that's true too. Exactly.
Check to check is when you're employed by
true.
somebody else.
That's totally
Client to
true.
client is when you're self-employed.
Yeah. And
But
you
when
take
you get
everything.
to when you step into entrepreneurship, now you're looking for contracts. You're looking for ways to be able
Exactly.
to make sure that this business is able to sit into places to where the name is being recognized in places to where when somebody hears Launch Studios,
integrity of
there are certain nouns or pronouns or adverbs. Jesus Christ, I guess my English day. Certain verbs, descriptive terms that not verbs but adjectives. See, I got so lost in that.
Right.
Certain adjectives that that will describe the business, and so it automatically bring to people's mind that this is what the business is. And so with that, as we stepped into being, now you made me lose my train of thought. Thank you. As we stepped into being entrepreneurs, we now think on a whole nother level to where now it's not just our family, but there are other families that are depending on, what comes through that. But before we even got to that level, to get to that level, we had to learn the thing that you said that you lacked earlier on, balance. We had to learn balance. We had to learn that if this thing was ever going to grow into something that would be self-sufficient, sustainable for not just us but for other families, we had to first learn how to balance our love and our family with the business. And so with that, we had to establish these are the hours that we're going to be open and we're going to close. Let's stick with that. These are the type of clients that we're looking for. It doesn't matter how good the money is. We got to be willing to say no, and we had to agree on those things. And that didn't always translate well in conversations for us because my idea sometimes of the ideal client was not necessarily your ideal.
But we had different businesses too.
Exactly, and that's what I was getting at. With Launch Studios, while I was a partner in Launch Studios, on paper, my day-to-day role was more so in a support effort. So when it came to the day-to-day operations, because you had to spend more time with the clients, I had to be willing to kind of take my hands off of it and say, okay, if he needs me, then I'll step in. But until then, I'm going to let him run that because this is really his baby. I'm just here supporting that. And so I stepped in as the secretary. I stepped in as the bookkeeper. I stepped in as the accountant. All of that.
Thank you. Because I couldn't do the other stuff. I couldn't do none of that stuff. That's it.
But seriously though, and that's establishing that balance. It's how we were able to now create two more businesses that we were able to come into with the knowledge and the lessons that we learned from the failures and the successes of Launch Studios.
Since you said that, let's talk about your business then. Because like you said, now we've grown slightly.
Yes.
Then your business, when you walked away from your job and God said walk away from your job, and then you open your business. And I'll let you tell this story, but when you called me that one time, open your business up and you were doing certain things and you were trying to get into it. And I had to be your support the way you were my support. And we learned how to grow into this. But I'll let you talk about it.
But funny thing though is when I opened my business,
it was
Coach Carter LLC at that time. When I opened Coach Carter LLC, I opened that with the knowledge of all the mistakes that we learned in Launch Studios. And so I was able to open Coach Carter LLC in the correct way. Things that we did not initially establish up front for Launch Studios, we were able to establish with Coach Carter LLC, which automatically put that business ahead of the curve. And so things that we had to learn from the first one, we didn't have to learn this anymore because now certain aches and pains we didn't have to have those anymore. But one ache and pain that stayed the same is that the frustration of running a business. It happens. Sometimes, clients aren't coming in the way you want them to. And so things aren't rolling. And so now it's like, okay, at the time we were still self-employed with Launch Studios, and then we opened Coach Carter LLC as a business and became self-employed in that as well. And so over time, as that developed and we grew, you were definitely a major support system in the same way that I was for you with Launch Studios, and you became my camera guy. You became my prayer. Well, you was always my prayer partner.
Yeah.
But you knew that people don't know this about me, but I have real bad anxiety when it comes to talking in front of people. A lot of people think it just comes naturally. It doesn't. Every time I'm about to talk in front of people, I feel like I'm about to throw up and
Hard to
butterflies
tell.
in my stomach. And you know that. And so with you being able to identify that,
Yeah.
it makes it so much easier when you're praying for me, you're calming me down. I don't
Yeah.
have to say anything. And with that being said, that is one of the most beautiful things about being partners in love and in marriage, because when you're partners with your spouse, you're able to recognize things in your spouse that
Exactly.
everybody else, the employees and everybody else around them, won't even be able to recognize because they don't have that intimate relationship.
Yeah.
It sometimes it baffles me when people say, "Oh, I just can't be in business with my spouse." I absolutely love it. Y'all hear me? I absolutely love it. I love being able to call my husband and be like, "Hey, I got an idea. I got a thought. This is what I'm thinking. You know, what do you think about it?" And for you to be like, "Hey," sometimes though you be like, "Hey, baby girl, just go for it." And I'm like, "No, but I want you to get like, tell me the pros and the cons," because I'm very much a list person. These are the pros, these are the cons, and you're like, "Hey, if that's what you're feeling, let's just do it." And I love that because it creates balance in me to let me know that everything doesn't have to be so perfect before I step out in order to present something. Sometimes you can step out with the imperfections and then perfect it along the way. And being a partner in love and in business with you has definitely helped me in that regard, because it's helped me to streamline my personality as a business owner and understanding that, again, everything ain't gotta be perfect. Sometimes you just got to do it.
Oh yeah, and you know what? And based on what you just said just now, trial and error happens a lot, and I think a lot of people decide not to do things because they have the fear of what won't. And I know we talked about this before. We fear a lot of times, and we used to do this all the time too. We fear. What do we say? We say like, well, what if it don't happen? What if it don't work? What if this doesn't pan out? And one thing that you and I started saying to each other, but what if it does work?
Yes.
What if it does work? If we don't do it, it's not going to work.
Exactly.
But if we actually get out there and we try it, what if it does work? And we went with that, mentality. And with that mentality, we went with multiple businesses. And they're actually.
Oh yeah, we've had a few that failed along the way. Let's be clear.
I was gonna say that. I was
It
getting to that point.
it sounds like, oh, we've been super successful.
No.
Before the super success, there were super failures along the way.
We tried it. We got out there. We did stuff, and we failed. We trial and error. We tried to figure out how to grow these the credit for certain businesses. How to get the EIN number. Can we use the EIN number to not hurt all credit? Or if all credit is not good, because there was a time where all credit wasn't good.
Yeah,
can we use Can we use the business credit? And then we're watching these people do it. If they're doing it, why can't we do it? And we just kept doing stuff. And God was just teaching us, and we were learning on the way what we were doing, but we were doing it together. So my knowledge was your knowledge. Your knowledge was my knowledge. Like, I wasn't this far ahead of you. You're way down here. We did it, and we grew together. And there was another story that I thought you was going to tell, to where when we got ready to start.
We got so many stories.
I know, but we got ready to start your business when you had walked away from your job, and you lost that account. It was a lot of money on the Forex thing.
Ooh,
you lost that money.
You bring back memories.
But it's like what people always say that, man, I'm looking at you guys and I see that you guys are doing well. Like, you guys are doing great. But I think one thing you have to deal with is your mental.
Yes.
Your mental, when you're doing certain things, and it's not just any business, this is multiple businesses. You got to deal with your mental as far as how you deal with failure, how you deal with setbacks, how you deal with, and if you're doing it by yourself, it gets hard. But when you have someone else with you that's a strong support system, they help you make it through that. They see the good. Because when you go through a failure, a lot of times all you think about is the bad. All you think about is all the negative. You need somebody to come in and say, okay, what lessons did we learn in this situation?
Yeah.
Well, when we did this, if we do it again, what do we need to do again? Or what do we not need to do the next time to make sure we go past this in this particular situation?
I think with that though, that's how we learn to make these last few businesses that we stepped into better, is because we looked at this is what we did. These are the things that we had issues with, errors that we ran into.
Yeah.
So now how can we fix these errors and then apply the fixes to this to make sure we don't run into those same issues? Or how do we look at the things that we tried to implement in this that just was straight garbage and we not even put this in here?
Well, what have we learned then?
Well, we've learned a lot along the way, to be clear.
Let's talk
For
about that
me
real quick.
in particular, I've learned that you can't again, you can't wait until everything is perfect before you step out. You got to just do it. I've learned that when you do step out and do it, while everything doesn't necessarily have to be perfect, it needs to be right.
Yeah.
You can't just step out and just do anything. You need to make sure your business is properly structured.
Exactly.
Get your LLC, get your EIN number, or if
Exactly.
you want to do a corporation because you want to do a nonprofit, or if you just want to do a corporation, whatever the case may be, set up your entity with the IRS in the correct way. Get your EIN number, file your taxes, hire, and if you may not up front, you may not be able to afford to hire an accountant, but you need somebody that's going to be able to look over your books and things like this.
Yep.
Most importantly, the things that you're not very smart in, get people who are smart in that, and that's going to help you to grow.
You said a mouthful just then.
And that has helped us because even though we're great in partners,
Yep.
we're great as partners, having other people along the way has helped us.
Oh yeah, big time. And you can't. I think another thing too is you can't.
Don't go to another thing. What have you learned? You gonna ask me a question, then you gonna try to switch it up. No, sir.
Well, you just said
No.
we're one. So if you learned it, I learned it.
No. What is
No,
your
no.
brain learn? He like
No,
another
no.
thing. No.
I'm
What
happy
have
you
you
said
learned?
that. But I've learned, a lot of the same thing that you just said. But I've also learned that you have to be resilient.
Oh.
You got to have that bounce backness. You know what I mean? Because in business, you got to know that bounce backness. But no, in business, and we've seen this because we went through like 6 or 7 or more businesses. You have to be able to encourage yourself too. I need my wife's encouragement as well. But I think also in this, in any business, you got to be able to encourage yourself. You got to have confidence in yourself that I know that I can do this.
Yeah.
Even if the world is telling me I can't. And I'm saying that because I've seen some artists come over to my studio, and I won't call names or talk bad about people, but they have a lot of confidence. And some of them may or may not be as great. But as time progresses, I'm for real. See, I'm serious. As time progresses, they get really good, but I see consistency.
Yeah.
I see this consistency from confidence. They have confidence, and that confidence pushes them to have drive, to keep going, to always come. You know what I mean? And that same confidence I see in them, if we have it in business, you'll always show up. You know what I mean? Like if you're going to training, if you're going to educate yourself, if you're going to do the next thing, you'll always have that drive or that consistency, the sustainability that you need to keep moving. So those are some of the things that I've really learned when it comes to business.
Now you said you had one last thing. What's the last thing? Then we're gonna have to wrap this up.
No, that was it.
That was your last thing?
Yeah, that was it.
Oh, okay. Well, then that's perfect then. If that's the last thing, we're wrapping it up then. So, again, thank you guys for tuning in tonight. I know our dynamic may be a little different than some of you out there. We're both in business. We both are entrepreneurs. Some of you may have spouses who are not necessarily entrepreneurs. And so they may not always know how to support you in that way. But be patient with them. Teach them, train them. Let them know. Don't be willing to share your vision and your goal with them.
Yeah.
And for those of you who aren't necessarily in business with your spouse and your spouse is in business, support that vision, support that dream. It may not always be easy at the beginning, but over time, like you said, with consistency, you would definitely see the benefits of the fruits of their labor. One more time for Afamir.
Oh, yeah.
I feel like I didn't really fully conclude it because I like conclusions, y'all.
And it smells so good, though. Man, I wish I could smell that. God, that smells so good.
So visit Afamir Candles online, guys. Shop from them, buy from them. They are owned by a young couple who are doing amazing things. And again, this is, I want to say it's 100% soy. So anything that would irritate your allergies or anything like that, you do not have to worry about it. I've literally left the candle. Don't tell nobody, y'all. I've left these candles burning one time all night long and woke up the next morning. And the house is smelling amazing.
It was.
And the candle was doing great. There was no smoke, no anything. Don't tell nobody though.
See y'all later.
Love y'all.